doing today? It is 3:30 Mountain Standard Time. I'm actually laughing at myself because there is a little bit of a delay on the video, so I can see what I was doing while I was waiting. So if you're looking at that, just disregard. I think it's kind of funny. And it's just, you see me because I do things like this while I'm waiting for things to start. But for those of you all who are joining me for the first time, first of all, I want to say thank you very much. This is not my normal abode. I'm actually in a hotel room. I'm traveling, literally just landed about 25 minutes ago and rushed over here to get on the time zone here in my hotel room, and invite you all in to join me here in my room, kind of, sort of, but not quite. I was reminded today of something that happened when I first met my husband 22 years ago. Next month, actually, we'll be married for 22 years. And there's a kind of interesting story about my husband and I. His name is Roy Times. And he is definitely my best bud, and he's my love and all that amazing stuff. I could get really gooey when I start talking about him, so I'll just keep it moving. But when he and I met, we knew each other for approximately 2 weeks, and then we got engaged. And then we were engaged for approximately 4 months, and then we were married. And thankfully, we've been married ever since. So it seems to be working. But when I first met him, probably like most other people, I had this buildup and excitement about introducing him to my parents. So I'm gonna just check in with you all for a second. If anybody is here with me live, I would love it if you would just kind of tag in and tell me, because it looks like my video is frozen. And if that's the case, I just want to make sure that you guys can still see me. Okay, so anywho, I was excited about introducing him to my parents, and had all of my kind of introduction excited, kind of prepared of what I was going to say to them and introduce them, because I had fallen in love with this man after 2 weeks, and who knows what they would have said. So anyway, I was working at the community college at the time when he and I started dating. And the plan was he was going to pick me up from work that day because my car was broken down. He was going to pick up my kids because my older 2 boys, they were very, very young when we first met. And the goal was for him to pick me up, and then we were going to go to my parents' house together. And I was going to make this introduction. Well, what ended up happening is I call him. I think I got off at like 4:30 that day. And I called him and, like, hey, where are you? I'm excited about meeting my parents. And I'm like, so where are you? And because it's getting close for time for him to pick me up. And he's like, well, I'm at your parents' house. And I'm like, what are you doing there? He goes, well, I'm eating spaghetti and neck bones with your dad. And I'm like, you're eating what? With who? How on earth did you get to my parents' house, number one? And then how are you sitting eating neck bones and spaghetti with my dad, whom you've never met? And I have not even made this introduction yet. So anyway, he tells me, well, I picked up the boys. I got off work early, he says. I picked up the boys and they told me how to get to your parents' house. So I just came on over because I knew you weren't ready yet, and, met your parents, and we've been kicking it, hanging out, eating spaghetti and neck bones. And if you are in any way, shape, or form from the South or have any African-American roots, you probably have tasted spaghetti and neck bones. And if not, then, no big deal. But that's something my mom used to make all the time. That's neither here nor there, but it's just interesting. You don't get that on a menu at a restaurant normally. So anyway, he made it a point of making the introduction, getting to know them, getting comfortable, and, to the point where he's sitting around eating and watching TV with my dad and hanging out. And they had a really great relationship up until my dad passed in 2010, and my mom still loves him to pieces. So he obviously did a really good job with that initial meeting, right? That initial interaction. So how do we relate this to networking? So what I find when I work with clients, and as you all know, that's one of the things that I do, is I help people to network more effectively and how to shorten their sales cycle and to have an effective follow-up system so that they can shorten that sales cycle. And one thing that I hear people say often, not everyone obviously, but sometimes I'll hear potential clients say things such as, I don't know what to say, or I'm a little uncomfortable. I don't even know this person. How am I going to approach them? Well, you really don't have any, there may be fear, but the fear is unwarranted because the likelihood is that person probably has the same concerns as you have. You might think that because they are more well-known or whatever, they might be more comfortable. But the truth is, the likelihood is that they probably are not nearly as comfortable as you might think they are. They may have the same apprehension, the same anxiety that you have. So first of all, take that off the table and release yourself to be able to go and make that introduction. The first thing I would say is be yourself. Don't feel like you have to put on airs or try to be something different just in order to make this introduction. Because remember, after this first introduction, you're going to have to keep talking to them. I'm hoping that you'll develop a relationship with them, and the true you is going to come out anyway. So let's make sure that you are genuinely yourself and you don't try to put on a facade or an air in order just to make that introduction or make that acquaintance and be impressive. Because if you meet someone for the first time at the grocery store, you don't try to impress them, you just meet them. So that's one of the first things I would say. The second one is make sure that you are very genuine with what you say, meaning, I have said it before, I'll say it again, I'm not a huge fan of the introduction elevator speech that kind of everybody uses, because I feel like it's kind of overplayed and people don't get a lot from it. They don't feel like they are getting the real you, and they don't understand why you do what you do. So I would much rather you tell them, this is who I am, this is why I'm so passionate about what I do, but only then after asking them questions about themselves. So you want to make sure that you have asked the right questions, that you have put yourself in a position to know who they are, what they're passionate about, what excites them, and then you'll be able to better respond to that question. I think we sometimes get a little overeager to share who we are without really understanding what that person is looking for and how we might be able to be of service to them. So ask great questions, and I've said that 100 times, so I'm hoping by now that that's kind of sinking in. Find out who they are, find out what they need before you begin to tell them who you are and what you're able to do. If you didn't hear my session yesterday on Sell Me a Tomato, go back and look at that and you'll understand a little bit more about what I'm talking about there. The other thing is obviously be prepared, meaning you have business cards. You're not handing them out like you're at a poker game, but you do have business cards that you can hand out. And then remember, people in different cultures specifically, they treat business cards in very high regards. You don't grab someone's business card and just stuff it in your pocket or your purse. You take the time and take a look at it, make them feel like there was a reason for you receiving that card, and only take the cards that you feel like you're going to do something with, not necessarily just every card for the sake of taking every card. So keep that in mind. And then lastly, and I think probably most importantly, is to give them your full attention. So whether you're nervous or not, it's really important that you make eye contact. There are a couple of body language cues that we should be aware of that cause people to feel better engaged with us. Things such as, things that are very, very slight that you probably already do and don't even realize it. Things like this, like when someone's talking, you kind of tilt your head, because what that tells them is you're engrossed in what they're saying, you're engaged in what they're saying. Because if you're, looking straight on, what you kind of look like is you're waiting till you have an opportunity to talk next. And more importantly, by no means do you want your eyes to be wandering across the room, because what you're now saying is, I'm engaged in this conversation right now, but I'm looking at the next opportunity to be able to find someone more interesting or a better opportunity. So keep your eyes engaged with who you're talking to. Make sure that you give that slight body language that makes them recognize that you are involved or you're engaged in that conversation. And then make sure you're listening and paying attention to what they're saying so you know how to appropriately respond. I think the most important thing is just to get up, walk across the room, and make the introduction. and take the motives off the table. I know we're here to make money. We're here for business. We network most times for that purpose. But if you take the motive off the table, now it really does become a business or a relationship building opportunity instead of an interaction that's designed specifically to make a transaction. And it changes the energy of that conversation tremendously. And when someone feels like they have a heart connection with you, they're more likely to make the transaction anyway, and that transaction turns into a long-lasting business relationship. So I hope that has been helpful for you. Make the introduction. Don't be afraid to say hello, and don't be afraid to engage in the conversation when you first meet someone. Just make sure you make it about them and not about you, because in that moment, your job is to learn as much as you can about how you can best serve them. So this is Tish Times. This is the time zone where we're giving sales and networking tips to help you to be unstoppable in business. I will see you on tomorrow. I will probably be at a different time again because I'm here in El Paso doing training, and I'll figure that out and I'll let you know what time that'll be, and I hope you'll be able to join us. See you later.